Here's everything happening in AI without the hype or the doom and gloom, just everything you need to know. Some of the biggest stories we're going to get into today are that a lawsuit alleges that OpenAI knew about a school event and failed to act to prevent it. Nvidia spends $26 billion on open source AI models. Are we headed towards a situation where LLMs become commodities? And a big debate on the AI moratorium. Do we keep pushing forward with AI, even with all the issues with potential job losses and things, or do we pause and assess first? We'll be weighing in on that. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the first story, which is OpenAI allegedly knew about a school shooting plan and they failed to do anything about it. So what happens? There was a teen in Canada that unalived eight other kids in a school, and apparently she'd been using ChatGPT for months to talk to ChatGPT about her plans, and she told the AI all of her plans. And OpenAI actually shut down one of her accounts. She opened up another one, continued to talk about it. So what really happened here? Well, the allegation is that she used ChatGPT specifically to plan the event. Now, the ChatGPT employees actually saw the issues when certain things like this sensitive nature occur. They do have teams that can review and decide what to do, and they considered notifying the authorities. And they actually told their higher ups in the company, and some of the senior people decided no, they weren't going to alert the authorities. All they did was shut her account down, but then she opened another one anyway. And apparently the AI, the allegation is actually helped plan the attack. So now they're being sued. Now, this opens up a lot of big discussions. I mean, we've known that this is coming for a while, right? It was only a matter of time before these types of lawsuits were going to come up. It's not the first case where there's been issues. I mean, we heard recently about a self-unalive that occurred because somebody had been talking with ChatGPT, almost committed an unalive or did a self-unalive instead, and there's all sorts of things. And it's going to happen with these models. I don't care how many safeguards you try to put in place, people are going to find ways to talk about things, because the reality is that people use ChatGPT in many cases to talk like their deepest, darkest thoughts and ideas. I mean, that's kind of the promise of it, isn't it? Is you have a chatbot in your hand that you can talk to, that can answer it, and especially you're going to talk to it things that you're not comfortable talking about with people, whether it's medical things, things that you don't want to speak to a therapist about, or these deep, dark fantasies that you have. Now, if somebody has these problems and they're dealing with this, and they have these violent thoughts or whatever it may be, they're going to talk about it with their AI. And what can you do about it? It puts OpenAI in a very difficult position. It's easy to look back and say, in hindsight, how could they not have alerted the authorities? But it's really not that simple, because you can't always tell the difference between somebody having dark fantasies and an actual credible threat. I have a feeling if OpenAI were to alert the authorities every time somebody started talking to it about some twisted dark fantasy they had that could harm other people, there would probably be way too much noise that they'd be making. It wouldn't even be credible. And that's just the reality. I mean, if you spent long enough around humans, you know that some of them have, problems. And this is going to happen. So we don't know exactly. I mean, this is the allegation, was that they should have basically known, that it was very clear that they were having these conversations to actually plan this event. We don't know the details. What exactly was she typing into the prompt? I think there's a big difference if she was sharing, I really hate these people, I wish they were dead. Not an okay thought, but are you going to alert the authorities because a teenager types that into ChatGPT? I don't think so. There's a big difference between that and her saying, ChatGPT, I want to do this terrible thing. Here's my plan. What do you think about this strategy? How should I go in? How should I accomplish this? That would be horrible. So where does it lie within that spectrum? We don't really know. I don't think we can necessarily rush to the conclusion that OpenAI did anything wrong. However, the more interesting thing, I think, is to think about the precedents that this could set. I mean, if you start to have companies like OpenAI be liable for what people do with their chatbots, you're going to have safety teams deployed. You're going to have a lot more guardrails. I mean, it wasn't that long ago before people were really complaining that AI wouldn't allow you to do simple things. I mean, I used to use Cloud to write for a news organization that was covering some war and just writing about what happened in the war, and it refused to allow itself to be used for news articles. I mean, it wasn't even opinion articles. It was just reporting facts and said, I can't, write that for you because it's a sensitive topic. So that's one extreme of guardrails that is not actually helpful. So we've kind of moved away from that. Where do you set the guardrails? It's difficult. And a lot of these things are being discussed on the legal level as well. We'll have to see where this goes. Next story I want to talk about is Andrew Yang is proposing taxing AI to fund universal basic income. So he says we should stop taxing workers and tax AI instead. Andrew Yang is somebody who's always in one level, kind of on the forefront of the tech conversation. He also is a proponent of the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, and Elon Musk has talked about the need for universal basic income. A lot of people have. I'm not going to get into the political discussion one way or the other. I do think there are issues on both sides. I mean, but what I will say is that the idea that jobs are going away is insane and wrong. Now, will jobs be replaced? Yes. Will there need to be some form of coverage or whatever it is to cover people who are losing their jobs because of AI? Maybe. The reality of looking towards a future where people aren't going to work is absolutely insane. And how can I say that? Well, it doesn't really matter how good your tech is, how good your life is. I mean, we could be living in a utopia. Let's say we're living in a utopia. Everything's provided for us, all our food, all our transportation, all our energy. Robots do everything for us. Great. Okay. You're a person, I'm a person. We don't know each other very well. I would like to do something for you that benefits you. And in exchange, I want to ask for something in return. Is that going to stop happening? No, that's going to continue. That's always going to be there. So, I don't get this whole idea of, okay, we're going to be in like a jobless future. That's not going to happen. Now, either way, I think this is very interesting, which is why I wanted to bring it up, is the idea of taxing AI. It could be something that could happen in the future. We're definitely not there yet, but you could see a case where if robots are doing a lot of work, if we get to that level, I'm not convinced we will, just because I think there's a lot of physical constraints that people are underestimating. I mean, we still don't even have a robot that can fold a towel properly, as far as I know. But maybe they're going to solve a few of the physical things with the finger movement and things, and suddenly robots are coming and they're here, and we'll just be in that world. It could happen very quick, for sure. There's a few physical constraints to solve. There's a few battery constraints to solve. And okay, now we're in a robot world. And if we're in a robot world, then you could see a case where the robots are doing a lot of work and maybe they should be taxed. Maybe people are leasing robots to each other. The economy could shift drastically, and we'll have to see how it goes. So I don't have a strong expertise or even a strong opinion on this matter, but I wanted to bring it up because I think it's very, very interesting, and we're going to continue following where this story goes. Now, somewhat related is this idea of a moratorium on AI. So Bernie Sanders, and being from Vermont, it's where I grew up, where Bernie Sanders is a senator. If you don't know Bernie Sanders, he's a very outspoken kind of pro-worker candidate. Some people call him a socialist. Some people call him pro-worker. He calls himself a socialist. Take that as you will. But he proposes a moratorium on AI data centers. Basically saying, let's stop building AI data centers. Insane idea. Denver, Colorado apparently did that. They're going to not allow data centers to be built. And it's like, okay, congratulations, Denver, Colorado. I'm sure that any company building a data center will find another location for their data center. and you caused at most a minor inconvenience, and you prevented a lot of economic resources flowing to you. Now, there is an argument in terms of energy that I haven't looked into. And if that's the argument, I mean, I haven't looked into in this specific case in Denver, Colorado. If that's their argument, then that's fine. Maybe there's a good argument because you can't drive up the cost of electricity for the other people there if you haven't built the infrastructure to support the data center. So I don't know if that's their argument. So leaving that aside, but the Sanders argument, we need to stop constructing data centers, is ridiculous because, well, I think the best response to this is the Palantir CEO, Alex Karp, says that if we were living in an age where only the US was developing AI and none of our enemies were developing AI, these are his words, he says, I would be very in favor of pausing this technology completely. Because yes, people in the AI space or the understands tech, we really get the arguments. We understand the arguments that AI is a risk and that it could cause problems, for sure. But this is the reality of tech. It moves forward very quickly. You can't just pause it. Once it's there, you can't just pause it. All you can do is try to race forward as fast as you can and try to be the ones that can control it so you can try to steer it to some direction that hopefully is better than it could be worse. Now, are we perfect? Are we going to get it right? Absolutely not. But do we trust ourselves more than our adversaries to get this technology correct? Yes, definitely. So that's the argument. And, I think you can either look at this as AI is going to be a huge problem and going to destroy everything, or you can look at it as the technology is here, it's coming. Let's figure out how to embrace it and use it so that we control it, both from the technology standpoint and also from the economic standpoint. I mean, if you're working right now and you're concerned about what AI is going to do to your job, get ahead of the curve. Learn about AI. And, some people will say, well, why should I have to, master this new technology? I've been doing my job the same way for 15 years. Let me just continue. Well, that's the reality of the world. I'm sorry. But you do have to evolve and embrace, especially something like this, to an extent. I mean, it doesn't mean you need to automate your whole job tomorrow, but it does mean you need to be aware of what's happening with AI. You need to be experimenting with it regularly. I'm not just talking about the chatbots. I'm talking about implementing it across workflows, whether it's with OpenClaw or Cloud Cowork. You need to be on top of it, and things are moving really fast. So I get that it can become a lot of work just to keep up, but I think the best way is to try to embrace some technology coming from AI regularly and play with it for a while, and then embrace a newer one regularly and play with it for a while. So you can at least know what's going on, and who knows, you might even find a very good use for it. So now let's move on to the next story, which is about Nvidia. So Nvidia is spending $26 billion on open weight AI models. And so the idea here is, like, Nvidia, if you don't know, they sell the GPUs, basically all the GPUs that serve the AI infrastructure. So OpenAI, Cloud, every single AI company is buying Nvidia GPUs almost exclusively to run their AI. So they are now going to be releasing, Nvidia, these open LLM that can be accessed, that can potentially, they have so much leverage here. I mean, they could develop world-class LLMs and give them for free to everybody. And why would they do that? Well, presumably the infrastructure is going to be built on Nvidia. And if they did that, they would be basically claiming the power in the relationship, because anybody who's building LLMs wouldn't really be able to control the dynamics of the market. Nvidia would. So I guess the other benefit, though, is it does mean that people can potentially use LLMs. They're not going to be restricted to one or two or three winners of the technology. And this is where I think we're headed. I mean, it's really interesting from an investment and commerce perspective to look at OpenAI and Anthropic and Google and all these other companies that are developing these LLMs that are losing huge amounts of money. OpenAI is projected to lose 14 billion in 2026, and Anthropic is essentially subsidizing cloud code. I believe, if I remember the numbers correctly, I believe that for every $200 they're making, they're spending like $2,000 on the compute. Because a pro account costs $200 with them monthly, they're spending like $2,000 of just the infrastructure to service that. So yeah, that's really bad. And what's really interesting about this is very typical in the market when you have a brand new category that's expanding like this, that can take over the world in a sense. I mean, we saw this, a great example with the social media platforms. Facebook lost money for years. We saw it with Amazon. Amazon lost money for years, but the play was, take Amazon for example, Jeff Bezos was telling the market for years, listen, we're losing money, but we're gaining market share. We're becoming the marketplace that people will buy online, and this is going to be a huge, huge market. We're talking $1 trillion market, and we're going to be the number one company that you can buy from. So what does it matter if we lose $1, $5, $15, $10 billion along the way? And to some people it sounds ridiculous, but believe me, this is how investors look at it. It's absolutely a strategy that applies when you're trying to dominate a category that's going to be huge like this, $1 trillion category. So this is the play for OpenAI and Anthropic. But it's very interesting for them because from what I can see, they're headed towards a situation where LLMs are a commodity, meaning there's going to be the Anthropic model, the Google model, the OpenAI model, the Alibaba model, the local models you can run, Perplexity model, this Nvidia model. There's going to be models everywhere. And most of the applications, or really all the applications, can plug and play. So you can say, you can shop around. You can say, yeah, you know, Google charges this, their model gets these kinds of scores. Anthropic charges this level, their models get these kinds of scores. Yeah, we'll go with the Google one, a little cheaper. So the point is, that's what people are going to do, and it's already happening for sure. I mean, anybody who runs either OpenClaw or anything similar to that, or just runs applications that are LLM agnostic that allow you to choose your LLM, if it lets you bring your own API key, it means that you're choosing the model based on cost and performance. And there's going to be hundreds of these that will be good, you know? So you're going to reach a situation where it's just a commodity, meaning everyone's competing for the bottom price. So if I own an LLM company and that's all we do, we're an LLM and I can provide my LLM for a little bit cheaper and the quality is just as good, you know, you're going to go for me. So it just drives the prices down. So that's a big problem. If you're OpenAI and you're losing $14 billion a year and you're promising investors, well, we're going to own this space, so it's okay. Well, you might just become a cheap commodity. And so this is why we see things like the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is the Perplexity play, where they're deploying a AI computer on a Mac Mini. So essentially, I mean, if you've used OpenClaw, you basically know what this means. Theirs is just going to be maybe more secure and more managed, less open source. But essentially what it means is that you're going to have a computer. This is the idea, is they're shipping the computer with the purchase. They're not yet open for purchase, but you can join the wait list. But the product is you pay us, you know, I don't know what's going to be, let's say $1,000. You pay us $1,000 plus a monthly fee. We send you a Mac Mini, and it will be connected to Perplexity AI, which is their LLM, Perplexity. And you're going to have this Mac Mini, and basically you can talk to the Mac Mini, you can tell it to do whatever you want, and Perplexity LLM, the AI, is going to do it for you. So you can say, hey, build me a spreadsheet. Hey, deploy me a website, deploy something to my GitHub, write me a code, check my folders, write me a new file. I saved a CSV document here with financial data for the past 10 years. Go through it and make me a presentation using PowerPoint. Now, obviously not PowerPoint because it's Mac, but people know PowerPoint, that's why I say it. But make me a presentation. So basically, you're going to be able to direct, the AI will control the computer, and you're going to direct the computer by telling it what to do. So this is really cool. I mean, the application and everything is really neat. But I want to talk about it from an investment standpoint, which is where it's so interesting, because they are making a play, Perplexity is making a play to essentially decommoditize themselves. Because if they're selling hardware Today it's a Mac Mini, maybe tomorrow they make their own computer. If they're selling hardware, that is no longer a commodity. So they're basically pivoting from, they've built this infrastructure layer with the LLM. That's not going to be lasting very long as a business model. So they're now pivoting to, how can we sell hardware? Well, we have this kind of advantage because we have our own LLM. Let's sell hardware. Let's enter that market. And then that'll be our business model. It's honestly not a good sign for these companies and for their investors that that's where we're at. And you see similar things with cloud. They're not releasing hardware at the moment. They're releasing a paid marketplace to buy different AI agents and AI systems. They're releasing cloud co-work and cloud code, which are bigger like infrastructure plays, so that you're not just connected to an LLM. You're basically accessing a whole infrastructure of orchestration of different LLM activities through their software. So I mean, essentially, it's just a piece of software. It's an application, just happens to be AI run. So they're making those plays. You know, ChatGPT, OpenAI, in the same time, what they're doing is they're running straight for the category play. They're just trying to be ubiquitous of, we're going to be the chat that everyone's going to use in the world for their chat, and they're running that play. And honestly, I think it's a bad play. I think it's a problem because of everything I just mentioned. I don't think ChatGPT really has a compelling business model, and I think it's going to become a huge problem for them in the future. And I think their only hope to survive they'll survive, but to stay with their valuation and not lose a ton of money for their investors, their only play is to just really build the infrastructure to such a level that they actually dominate the infrastructure. So a couple more things I want to run through here. So Cloudflare just deployed a crawl system, so you're going to be able to crawl any website using just their API, so you don't have to manage lots of APIs. Now, I don't want to get into the technicals here, but Cloudflare essentially is a security layer over a lot of the web. They own a huge amount of the space in the web are run on Cloudflare. The biggest thing this impacts is enterprise adoption, because basically if you want to do scraping, meaning like gathering data off of websites, if you use Cloudflare, it's a lot of brand credibility behind it. And there's a lot of security credibility behind it. So it's not going to make your legal and compliance teams freak out if you're a big company, where normally scraping, it's very tricky because a lot of times you're breaking the terms of use of different companies. But Cloudflare has the credibility to allow you to scrape without breaking the terms of use. And they're making it really, really easy so that you don't have to deploy complex applications and multiple developers and things. So these sorts of things essentially existed for the consumer or the solo builder market who didn't really care about all the legal ramifications. And they're still going to scrape using things like Apify, which can scrape LinkedIn and things which technically break the terms of service. But for enterprises, this is a big move. And that brings me to what I want to wrap this up with, which is talking about where we are today with AI adoption. Because, if you're on X especially, and maybe a little bit less if you're on LinkedIn, you're going to see this feeling that like we're all living in this AI world. And the reality is that AI adoption is pretty far along when it comes to like the solo entrepreneur developer community in terms of adoption. Like, we're all using AI, we all use AI, and a lot of us are really aware of kind of what's happening, what's the latest news in AI, which models are working, which ones are better, which ones are coming out, which frameworks and which open source software is better, and so on and so forth. But the reality is that when it comes to deployment in organizations, we're very, very, very early. And if you even look at a lot of the big things that have happened recently with companies that have offered new services, I mean, this Perplexity computer, that's marketed towards and serving, a solo productivity need, right? It might be used by a company, it might be used by even a CEO, but they're using it kind of on their own to augment their own personal work. And that's where we're at. But when you look at adoption across an enterprise in a way that's past legal checks, past compliance checks, past IT checks, past security checks, and is adopted by enterprises and is deployed company-wide, that's connecting the work of multiple employees together or multiple departments and doing things that the enterprise needs, We're very, very early on that. There's not really that much in that space. A lot of what's been adopted is more sort of application based, like maybe you're using agents inside Salesforce, or maybe you're using, certain things in your tech stack that have some AI components, but you're not really using AI in the sense of you're not deploying AI as part of your infrastructure for accomplishing work. And that's coming. That's really the big hurdle that needs to be crossed. And it's really interesting because you have this sort of dichotomy of a world that's emerging where, on the one hand, in the developer space and in the solo builder space, we're very aware of AI and we're using it every day. And even inside big companies, you might have a job for a big company and you're using AI within that company, and maybe everyone is. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang talked about how their entire departments of developers, all their developers are using AI and using it extensively. But it's still being used in single, I don't know about Nvidia specifically, but in general, it's being used in these single silos. Like each person is using it to augment their work. And now where we're headed is actually adopting inside enterprises. And there's a lot of huge opportunity there. And we're going to really be watching that as that progresses. So that's it. We're going to do another one of these soon. I'm trying to do at least 2 a week. And we'll see you next time.